The crack of bat on ball.
The smell of peanuts and Cracker Jacks.
The sound of the crowd as they cheer a home run ball carrying the outfield wall.
There's nothing quite like a day at the ballpark. And for the past 30 years, baseball fans have been treated to America's pastime at one of the nation's best ballparks, Oriole Park at Camden Yards in Baltimore, Maryland.
And as we know at Barton Malow, from the numerous ballparks we've built since, Oriole Park quite literally changed the way they were built.
Defined by exposed steelwork, brick construction, and a historic look, Camden Yards was designed to provide a modern-day experience with that classic feel that made baseball fans fall in love with the game while playing on the sandlots and diamonds growing up.
And while there was mixed reaction at the time of its construction, Camden Yards has stood the test of time, frequently being named as one of the best ballparks in America, right up there with the likes of Fenway Park, Wrigley Field, and Dodger Stadium.
Utilizing goats to clear vegetation on a steep hillside to save on manpower and ensure safety. We've done that. Watching a world-renowned architect crumple up a piece of paper and tell you that's how they want their building to be designed? We've been there, too. Ever envision a bricklaying robot or material lift unit assisting laborers with building? No, it's not something out of the Terminator. We've done that on our projects. Every project has a great story. With over 3,000 team members and nearly 100 years of experience in the construction industry, we at Barton Malow have more than a few to tell that don't fit the usual industry coverage. I'm Eric Fish.
And I'm Rob Riley.
And we're both Barton Malow team members and the hosts of this podcast. And we're going to be bringing you the untold stories from the job site. The weird, the wild, and the unconventional paths to success. It's construction, but it's said differently.
As the former vice president of planning and development for the Orioles, Janet Marie Smith was one of the faces of the new ballpark.
Her first job in baseball, Janet Marie spent 2 different stints with the Orioles and has also worked in the same role for the Red Sox and Braves. She's worked as the executive vice president of planning and development for the Los Angeles Dodgers since 2012. And as we found out shortly after chatting with her, she's got the World Series hardware to prove it.
Hey there.
Hey, Janet. We're doing good. We're doing good. Hey, thanks a lot, Janet, for taking some time to talk with us and kind of go all over the place between, Camden and all these other ballparks and stuff like that. So we really appreciate it. Can you talk a little bit, Janet, about your background before you got into the world of baseball?
I had worked on large public-private building developments, Battery Park City in New York, and the redevelopment of Pershing Square in downtown Los Angeles, and was really interested in how cities grow and change and the role that one can play, sort of almost like a public developer. How do you put together a design team? How do you manage all the community interests? How do you build something that really can change a city? And Baltimore was a city I'd always admired. I had studied at an urban planning school, and it's well known for having reinvented itself when the industry all moved out to much bigger piers and deeper waters. And Baltimore, instead of waiting around for something to happen, just took the bull by the horn and built the Inner Harbor and the Jim Rouse Festival Marketplace Pavilions, and did a science center, an aquarium, a convention center, hotels. So Camden Yards was just part of this whole script of Baltimore reinventing itself. And as a baseball fan, I knew they were building a new stadium. And somewhere along the way, I just put 2 and 2 together in my head. I thought, wow, that would be a fantastic opportunity to bring 3 million people into downtown Baltimore every year and continue to grow this city center. So I wrote Larry Lucchino, who was then the president of the Orioles, and the rest is history, so they say.
You just outlined all that awesome stuff that was going on in Baltimore, and then there's like just this one last thing, right, that they need to get people into that downtown area and start really revitalizing it.
Well, I think you're still adding things, which is great. Mm-hmm. Cities never stop growing and changing. And I think baseball parks are a big part of that. And it was, baseball started out as an urban sport, and it sort of lost that feeling during the multi-purpose stadium era. Often those big parks like Riverfront or Three Rivers or Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, they were in the city, yeah, but they weren't of the city. You know, they kind of just existed there. I mean, what was amazing to me was that after Camden Yards opened, you had cities from Cleveland to Cincinnati to San Diego to San Francisco kind of following that model. And not just from a baseball perspective, but just in terms of using sports as a strategy for bringing people into the city and really changing the way we think of a downtown as being a civic space.
Yeah, I mean, look at the story of downtown Detroit right now, right? I mean, I think that's a prime example. I mean, we had the Tigers, Tigers have always been downtown, like historically, right? They were in Corktown neighborhood at Old Tiger Stadium, and then they built Comerica Park. But, the Red Wings were, a painful distance still in downtown. But then, we ended up bringing the Pistons downtown, and then they brought the Lions downtown, and all that just happened within the matter of the last 10 years or so to really kind of get this thriving downtown development. So, no, it's really cool to see that happen. And like you said, sports are that factor, right?
Yeah, they really are. And I think we underestimate sometimes how much they do bring us together, both, physically and just, the idea that it's a language that we can all speak. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so special to be a part of the city that way.
One of our first questions that we had sent over to you, what was the driving factor for the open air design when things were trending in that multi-purpose, concrete dome style?
Well, there was a lot of thought put into how this building, through its architecture, could tell a story that made it feel like it belonged in Baltimore, it belonged to the Orioles, that when a fan arrived there in, April of 1992, that it instantly felt like home. And our graphic designer, David Ashton, worked really closely with the design team to bring those things to life.
That's interesting.
And those are things that couldn't happen in a multi-purpose building. Sometimes we blame the round cookie cutter building for too many things, but you can't expect a building that's home to baseball and football and numerous other civic events to celebrate its team in the way that Camden Yards was able to celebrate being home of the Orioles.
So let's talk about construction for a moment. While the project was being built, is there anything that you can recall that kind of stuck out to you? Any challenges, any unique stories or anything from the construction?
Well, I would say that the fact that we were building on a site that had clearance issues before we started was probably a plus, because I think it gave us time to think. On the one hand, it was a breakneck speed project and there was no missing opening day. On the other hand, there was enough time built in to take down the buildings that were built in the 40s that were on the site previously. And so there was probably some 6 to 9 months in our schedule that would not have been in a traditional greenfield schedule. And that was a real plus, because I think that extra time to think and make good choices made a difference. And Barton Mallow worked really closely with HOK and their engineers to help us make good choices about materials based both on the aesthetics, but also on constructability.
Can you take us back to, I guess, the front office reaction, the player reaction, the community fan reaction when this park was going up, and I guess after it was finished and ready for opening day?
There was certainly a lot of controversy early on around building an old-fashioned ballpark with new money. There were certain legislatures and pundits at the newspaper that questioned whether or not that was the smart move and whether or not it would stand the test of time. And I confess to being worried about that myself. You wondered, how do we know this is going to stand the test of time? And you don't really know that. I think one thing that gave us a lot of confidence was that Frank Robinson, our manager, had played in these older parks, and he could speak with credibility to the irregular playing field, the small amount of foul territory, the proximity of fans to the field, and the positives that brought from a player perspective and from a baseball perspective. And I think that was huge, not just hugely important in terms of its influence on Camden Yards, but hugely important in terms of the credibility it brought to the project.
I love that line. You're building an old-fashioned ballpark with new money, right? And so that probably, like you said, just scared the hell out of some people. And you weren't sure what that reaction was going to be. And I don't know. I just think that's awesome. I never considered that.
Oriole fans had only known Memorial Stadium, which had started out its life as football. So there was a learning curve among, a huge amount of our audience, our community, and all of that really mattered. The input came from a lot of places, an awful lot of places. To your question of, success, I think when it opened on, in April, I think it was the 6th, I can't really remember, April 6, 1992, I think it was just this feeling of just relief to see, even though we'd had exhibition games there, to see one was in the books. I think, as Larry Lucchino has often said, we were looking to do something really special for Baltimore. And the fact that it spawned an American rethinking of cities and baseball was a total surprise, I think, to all of us.
Your role with the Dodgers now, you've been with them for some time now. Did you get a World Series ring a couple of years ago?
Sure did.
All right. Excellent stuff. Yeah. And were you with the Red Sox when they were winning those championships?
I was.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And I was working for the Braves when they won in 96. So it's, that's a jewelry collection.
I was going to say, your hand's getting heavy.
Huge thank you to Janet Marie for taking some time to chat with us today. Our next guest is Barton Malow Vice President Len Moser. After graduating from Penn State University, Len gravitated to the Washington, D.C. area, where construction was booming 30-plus years ago. He was hired by Barton Malow, and his first project was none other than Camden Yards. No pressure, right?
Since working on Camden Yards, Len has become one of Barton Malow's go-to builders in the sports market. His notable baseball resume includes each of the most recent Atlanta Braves developments, the old Turner Park and the newer Truist Park, and early work on PNC Park in Pittsburgh.
He's also built many minor league, college, and spring training facilities, including Atrium Health Ballpark in Kannapolis, North Carolina, Segra Park in Columbia, South Carolina, and Publix Field at Joker Marchant Stadium, the Lakeland, Florida spring training home of the Detroit Tigers.
Rob.
Hey, Len, how are you, man?
Man, I'm so good. I'm sitting here in my little kitchen office and sun shining. So, yeah, it's all good. I'm ready to roll.
All right, cool. Hey, Len, thanks for joining us this morning. As far as I've known you, you've always been plugged into the sports market. Has it always been that case, or have you, bounced around a little bit?
Predominantly in sports. I mean, that was, right out of college, I was fortunate enough to be involved on the Orioles project in Baltimore. But, and over the years have dabbled, if you will, in some other project types, K-12, a lot of higher ed, sports and higher ed. Certainly my passion's been with sports construction, and spent most of my career focused on sports with Barton Malow.
So, I mean, that's a huge project, though, coming right out of Penn State, right? And did you grow up on the East Coast, or did you grow up down Southland? Where are you originally from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Pittsburgh and ended up going to Penn State really because of a good friend of mine that was a couple of years ahead of me. He was there. He said, "Hey, look at this construction program, architectural engineering program," and it turned out to be a great fit. And when I was coming out of college in the late '80s, it was the economy was slowed at that point, and there wasn't a lot of construction going on in Pennsylvania, certainly in Pittsburgh. A lot of the work and a lot of the opportunities were in the Baltimore, Washington kind of metro area. A lot of my friends and others that were a year or two ahead of me were going to that Washington market.
So can you talk a little bit about, so you get placed on, Oriole Stadium, you go through the interview process, you're hired, and they tell you, hey, you're going to go help build this new Baltimore Orioles ballpark, right? I mean, that's a little intimidating.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was definitely exciting to hear about the project. I, of course, had no idea. I just, my goal was to get to DC, and Baltimore.
Get a job, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Get a job. And, Baltimore wasn't necessarily top of the list, if you will, right? If you're comparing Washington, D.C. and the capital to Baltimore. But yeah, when it was like, oh, we're building a new stadium for the Orioles, of course, my ears and eyes perked up. Tried to play baseball in college, didn't quite hit my growth spurt yet, so didn't go too far. But was always a sports fan, baseball fan. So very exciting to have that opportunity.
So from talking to Janet, we understand that there was, even a little bit of hesitation from the community about this new development and sort of the intentions that they had for it. Was that talked about on the site? Was there any sort of intimidation about being on a project like this, noting that?
I think it was certainly, literally groundbreaking, right? So the location of it, at that point, it was the edge of the Baltimore city proper, kind of getting into the neighborhoods. So I think there was the whole concern about the neighborhood imposition that this facility was going to have. And, I think that's, certainly has changed since then. I mean, it's really been a catalyst for the growth of the community. But yeah, certainly there was a lot of pushback just because it was an unknown, I think, from the community development side of things. And also the size of the undertaking at that time. It was a $100 million project, and at that time, in the late '80s, it was 1990. I think '89 we broke ground. That was a significant amount of money that the state and the city of Baltimore were investing. So it was, I think there was a lot of uncertainty, but obviously changed the whole makeup of downtown Baltimore.
So can you talk a little bit about how Bart Mallow worked with the Orioles and with Populous? Can you just talk a little bit about that partnership?
I think everybody was really focused. I remember good communication. Of course, I was a young engineer, so maybe I wasn't seeing all the difficult conversations, but I think from a field perspective, everybody was excited about the project, excited to work on the project. You didn't know exactly that you were in this kind of literally a game changer of a project for our business and for baseball. And we've set up a great relationship with Populous that's lasted, it's very much flourished over the years, done billions and billions of dollars of projects since then. And I think that relationship is as tight as it can be.
Did you bring over any of your lessons learned from the Orioles? Because I feel like that PNC Park, models that stadium in some ways, right? It's definitely its own unique thing, but was there anything that you brought over maybe from the Orioles stadium into PNC during pre-construction and other things maybe that you referenced back and forth, or what was that like?
So Coors Field was on the heels of Oriole Park.
Okay.
Denver.
Coors was next. Okay.
Coors was next. And then I think I don't know if the PNC was next, or maybe there was, trying to remember if there was something in between. There was just so much involved in the shapes of these buildings, that required a lot of additional input, a lot of additional planning. And I think at that point too, Populous, the architect, because there's architect from Oriole Park as well. So there was a lot of synergy already in place, a lot of relationships. We kind of knew what was coming in terms of their details. And so it went a lot, more smoothly there in Pittsburgh, I think, than we had to overcome in Baltimore.
What other ballparks that were you involved with besides the ones that we've talked about? Were you involved with Kannapolis and some of the other ones down south that we've done?
I've been involved. We had a really good run of, obviously been involved in a lot of the major league ballparks like Oriole Park, PNC, Coors Field, Minute Maid for the Astros. But we had a really great run of, and still have, on the minor league ballparks, the single A, double A, triple A ballparks. And that started actually in around 2000 in Louisville, Kentucky. We were fortunate to get selected there to build Louisville's Slugger Field. And that really started our, pretty much, I'd say, a dominance, if you will, in these minor league ballparks. We were building one. I remember there was a streak probably in 2000. We finished with the Gwinnett Braves in 2009. We opened the ballpark in 2012, 14, 15, 16, 17, just on a really awesome run, but including Kannapolis, which was a huge, not only great project, but a huge transformation to the city, to the town. Literally rebuilding the town around the ballpark. Jacksonville, 2002, I think we opened Jacksonville. That was a change of that whole sports complex in Jacksonville next to a new arena that was built at the same time. These minor league parks were as much a catalyst as well as the major leagues for these downtowns to build around and to develop.
What do you think it is that makes us, the builder of choice for these massive stadiums, Len?
Well, I think, certainly, a lot of our business is about timing. So certainly being involved in one of these, in a project like Oriole Park, having that connectivity, having that success of that, having that story to tell is huge. We've developed, because of that kind of pre-con, that planning, that problem solving, that geometry, focus, on that and solutions. I think that's what owners look at, and we get that feedback a lot. That owners like our pre-construction, like our collaboration, that we can, get to bring them solutions, not just problems. Give them really accurate, numbers in terms of cost, data early on, because we've got that history. So I think all those things contribute to just, our success and being a leader in our business of sports construction.
From Cal Ripken Jr. breaking the consecutive games played record to become baseball's new Iron Man, to the 1993 All-Star Game, to Eddie Murray's 500th home run, to even a visit from Pope John Paul II for Mass in 1995, Camden Yards has served as the perfect venue for the past 30 years. And the ballpark that forever changed baseball isn't done playing host to memories and milestones anytime soon. Unlike so many other ballparks that are now destined for the wrecking ball after only a few decades of operation, Oriole Park at Camden Yards is well suited to stand the test of time and further ingrain itself in baseball lore.
That's all for this episode of Said Differently. We'll be back soon for more stories from the job site. This is Said Differently, a Bart Mello podcast. For more information on Oriole Park at Camden Yards, visit mlb.com/Orioles. To view more sports projects that Bart Mello has built, visit bartonmello.com/markets/sports. This is Said Differently, a Bart Mello podcast.